The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Introduction to Subrogation and How It Impacts You. I'm Andrea Terrell, Marketing Director at H&I, and this webinar is a part of our H&I University series where our mission is to drive change through education. A couple of housekeeping things before we dive into the content. We will be posting the slide deck on hni.com for you to access after this event. We'll be doing Q&A at the end, but feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation as they come up. You can ask a question by typing it into the questions or the chat window in your GoToMeeting console. You can also ask us questions on Twitter. Our handle is @HNIRisk, and our hashtag is HNIU. And if you do give us a little shout out on Twitter, you'll be in the running to win some H&I swag at the end of our H&I University season. Wanted to say a quick word of thank you to our sponsors. The companies that you see on the screen are the reason that we're able to put on this webinar and workshop series free of charge, so we really value their support. Next, I'd like to introduce our speaker, Mary Beth Jackson. Mary Beth is the VP of Claims and Subrogation Manager at Great West. She's been with Great West and in the industry for 18 years, so she has a lot of insight into this that we're excited to have her share with us. So, Mary Beth, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Andrea, and thank you to H&I for setting this up and getting the information out there. I'm excited to be able to speak to you all today. My name is Mary Beth Jackson. I'm with Great West Casualty. I'm Subrogation Manager and have been here, as Andrea said, for over 18 years. Prior to that, I was a prosecuting attorney and then in private practice. So come from kind of a litigation background, but have been with Great West. And what I would like to do today, I'll go through this PowerPoint, if you will, and discussion, and leave time for question and answer at the end. As I was telling Andrea prior to starting today, it's a little different for me. I'm used to giving these presentations and being able to see my audience and be able to kind of tell if there's questions or if something comes across as not as clear, and I can't do that today, so I'll just kind of plow forward and speak and then give time at the end if there's any questions or if something wasn't clear. We have a very diverse audience today, so I'm kind of doing a very some definitions and some real surface stuff that some of you know probably better than I do, and for that I apologize, but I think it's good to be able to give the overall concept that way and kind of bring us to who we are and what we do. So I guess we'll get started without further ado. I have this slide up, the shoes. I'd like to start with what the definition of subrogation is. The dictionary, not very helpful, gives it as the act of subrogating. It's a legal term wherein it allows the insurer to put in the place of another or substitute with regard to a legal right. And how that becomes important is allowing us to actually step in and be able to pursue the loss on behalf of our insured. So we're not talking for just the insurance company or Great West Casualty's benefit, but even more so, more importantly, I would say, is the insured's losses and the benefit to them. In our policy, as you can read, the definition or description is listed there. If any person or organization to or for whom we make payment under this coverage form has rights to recover damages from another, those rights are transferred to us, meaning Great West. The person or organization must do everything necessary to secure our rights and nothing after accident or loss to impair them. I always take a moment to talk about that and the importance, and that kind of comes into play sometimes when the driver's at the scene of a loss and the other party may say, sorry, my fault, I hit you, I'll take care of it, or I'll tell my insurance company, you just take it in for repairs and we'll take care of that. And I get into a little more depth on this later, but I would caution always against doing that, because invariably after time to think about it or to talk to their employer or maybe talk to their brother-in-law's friends that's an attorney, the story changes. And you know, not that it's always for negative or a facetious nature, but just then by the time our driver takes it in for the repairs and hasn't reported it to Great West, they don't get paid by the adverse, and as you can imagine, lots of problems, additional problems crop up at that time. So that's why I like to put in not only the technical definition, but how our policy reads. Here at Great West, we take a lot of pride in the fact that subrogation is a priority at the beginning of all claims, and we have the claim set up to us from the initiation of the loss and at the outset, and that's different in respects from some other companies where it's identified, you know, by their already in-house either liability or workers' compensation adjusters, or they handle the subrogation in addition to a very full caseload of liability, physical damage, workers' compensation claims already. Our subrogation staff is just that. They're looking at the claims with an eye on the subrogation angle from the very beginning. And how that benefits our customers is we are able to nail down the evidence from the very initiation of the setup and of the claim. We are able to, you know, talk to witnesses, contact the witness information, obtain surveillance videos without this important evidence being lost at a later date or after a certain amount of time goes by. And we have found that to be a very successful method of success for our subrogation. We at Great West stress subrogation. We have big time, and there's many more, but 4 very good reasons why we stress this. Obviously, the money, and what we mean by that is the very black and white dollars that come back to the insureds in the form of your deductibles and downtime, out-of-pocket expenses. Obviously, the pure subrogation dollars paid out by Great West. It is also a marketing tool, I guess, if you will, that we use, and we try to explain that there are subrogation attorneys on staff being employed by Great West, so it's not additional expense to the insured. It's part of what they get for their services. The attorneys have specialty areas that they pay attention to on subrogation, that is workers' compensation and products liability, and we'll get into that more in depth in a later slide as well. The third bullet point listed there is that it's a valuable service, and that kind of shadows over with what I said about no charge for subrogation efforts. It also is a valuable service in that it brings the money back to the actual responsible party. That is the 4th bullet point as well, the societal interest. So by doing those things, getting the responsible party to pay, it not only improves the bottom line for Great West, but all of us are in it together. It improves the bottom line for the agencies. It improves the bottom line for the insured's business. And why we like to stress it is the people being held accountable for their actions. Hopefully on the flip side of that is the fact that on our liability side, we're thoroughly investigating the claims and being responsible when it's the other way. We all need to work together to successfully resolve the claims and successfully see our subrogation interests from beginning to end. The reasons of us being in this together, and part of the reason I really like to do these types of talks and meet with agents and customers, is by putting this time in and this investment and working together, we're more apt to, day after day of seeing this claim, being able to effectively and efficiently resolve these, get the dollars back where they belong. The coaching is very important, and as H&I agents can tell you, we are here for advice and input. I have a lot of customers that will call and say, do you remember that claim that you handled, you know, where it involved this type of factual situation? Well, I have a similar one going, but it might be a different state, or a state that we're not currently handling out of my staff, but they've met us, they've dealt with us before, and we still will assist and try to help in that respect. The understanding listed is that we're hoping by providing this information that we're all working together. If you have questions, and if you think that there's a possible subrogation on a claim that hasn't been set up to Great West, that you will contact us and we'll take a look at it. Organizationally speaking, as stated at the beginning, I'm here out of our home office in South Sioux City and manage a staff of about 10 subrogation staff. Half of them, or a little more than half right now, are subrogation attorneys. They handle our physical damage subrogation claims in excess of $15,000, as well as workers' compensation subrogation and products liability subrogation, fire losses, thefts, and cargo. And they have received additional training and education in those specialty areas. The other portion of our subrogation staff is made up of subrogation claims representatives. They handle the losses that are under $15,000, and more on a broader note of Great West, we have offices throughout the country. We have them in Idaho, Indiana, Texas, and Tennessee, and those offices have subrogation staff as well. Not the same numbers that I mentioned for our home office, but we have the subrogation staff in each of our facilities. The integration is a collaboration within our organization to work together with our physical damage adjusters, our workers' compensation adjusters, and our liability to all. We are tied into each other's files. We can toggle between each other's notes. You know, that allows us to see what the damages are, properly set our reserves, properly put our adverse insurance companies that we're dealing with on notice of what we believe our final subrogation demand will be. So that integration is allowed via our computer system throughout the company. Take a moment to discuss who is Great West Casualty and what industry are we really in. We, at every opportunity when we do speak or in front of audiences, make it very clear that we align ourselves in the trucking industry more so than insurance. We belong to various and local in each of our states where we operate Truckers Day events, and we will be involved on panels of those and committees in their organization. We are also members of TIDA, Trucking Industry Defense Association, so we like to explain that we are aligned with the trucking industry. Where do we find subrogation opportunities? A lot of different venues, areas, and subject matters are a part of our files and what we handle. The first and most common one that comes to mind when people think subrogation is the motor vehicle accidents. Obviously, that's someone else hits our insured, we get involved, we pursue them for our damages. There's also non-vehicular accidents, which are a great many of the subrogation claims we have, and that could be anything from slip and fall at a fuel station, so nothing to do with the truck itself or any type of accident. Vandalism, we will get involved in presenting our subrogation demand to a court for restitution. if criminal activity was the source of the physical damage to our trucks. We get involved in forklift operators, like at a facility, and if they will puncture the side of the trailer, or we've had where nothing to do with the damage to the truck, but a forklift operator will knock the cargo off the back of the truck and onto our driver. We've had injuries of that capacity, so it's a workers' compensation subrogation issue. Fires, and those can be anything from truck sitting idle overnight and something in the dashboard. You know, fire will do cause and origin inspections and look to pursue manufacturers of parts. That's the products liability section. That's also the mechanical product failures talked about there. We have had, I was involved in a claim that kind of interesting years ago, where it had both a prong of workers' compensation and products liability, and what that was a customer was offloading a liquid substance, and the hose from the trailer malfunctioned. The little metal cap at the end of the hose kind of caught, and when the driver went to try to jar that loose, the pressure from the liquid behind there then made that little metal cap flip open, sprayed his face and eyes. So we had a workers' compensation, but we further had the products liability in that we pursued the manufacturer of the hose and the facility that was responsible for providing that hose for the offloading. So that the reason that's an interesting file to me, and I bring it up, is the products issue had nothing to do with the truck or the trailer. It was the product of the hose, which is obviously, you know, outside of the trucking industry, but that's some of the things we do and get involved in. Of course, I wouldn't bring it up unless it was a successful claim, so that's kind of an interesting one to discuss as well. Another subrogation opportunity is in thefts. There's, as you all know, thefts at the truck stops, sometimes driver situations, or have a theft situation. We will pursue, and we will get involved with the local law enforcement entities and present our subrogation information to them to continue to assist with restitution in that fashion. Negligent bailments, we will see opportunities there if our trucks are parked overnight or a weekend or for a period of time in a lot, and we'll look for surveillance videos. We'll look for, you know, if it was fenced and what the expectation was of their truck being secure. You know, a lot of these things depend on the various state laws and different regulations that we'll look at, but these are opportunities that we pursue, and we try to basically overturn every stone in looking for who is responsible for causing the loss, and then to pursue them.
Mary Beth, quick question on that slide from someone in the audience.
Sure.
How about a truck getting hit by lightning? Are there any subrogation opportunities there?
I mean, the quick answer is no. Who would you pursue? Who would have the purse of money? You know, that's kind of the quick answer to that, unless I'm misunderstanding what their question means. So whoever asked it, please, you know, if there's more information on that. But no, okay. Act of God. Act of God. Okay.
Seems like he'd be difficult to subrogate against. Yes.
Workers' compensation subrogation. The next slide is, as those of you that handle that portion know, it's an animal of itself. There's various regulations and state laws and formulas that have to be adhered to, and we at Great West have worked really hard over the years to somewhat specialize in that area of subrogation. There's a lot of recovery opportunities to be had, and dollars left on the table if it's not aggressively and actively pursued from the beginning. And We do that in each of our regions. The attorneys, as I mentioned, are the only subrogation personnel that handle those. As you can imagine, the workers' compensation claims are a lot of times talking very sizable dollars and large claims and potential. Animals on the road refers to most of the time where we see subrogation opportunities with animals is cow in the road cases. Obviously, I'm here in the Midwest home office, so we see a lot through the Dakotas, Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, Oklahoma, down through Texas. Our other regions probably don't see those as much as we do here, but we look at the owner of the cow. Have they previously had issues with their animals being out loose? Do they have a poor fencing operation at their farm? I mean, we will, again, back to the being involved with the claim from day one, we will begin an investigation process of that. We have had before had to look at the tag on the ear of the cow to identify the owner. It's not like anyone's usually jumping forward to say that was my animal that was in the road and caused all the damage. So sometimes the investigation of those is a little more problematic than you would imagine. We also have had situations where by the time we get out to the scene, somebody has quickly cut the ear off that cow to try to keep us from finding out, you know, who the owner is. And we have, you know, methods, law enforcement we work with, and independent adjusters that we will search for that information. We have had horses that we have pursued horse owners for, animals on the road. Kind of along with the lightning question I've been asked before, what about deer in the road hit? And again, I've yet to find a lot of deer families with a lot of money, so we haven't been very successful with deer in the road. What kind of dollars are we talking? What can be recovered? Physical damage claims, that's it's kind of in the order here of the amount or the percentage of claims we see. The majority of what we will get is the motor vehicle accidents, physical damage claims. Cargo claims, we will see where there's offloading, reworking the load, salvage off a portion of that, and I have a slide later that talks about that and shows a picture of a claim we had. But those opportunities we will also present in our subrogation demand. The workers' compensation, what I've previously discussed. Liability claims have subrogation opportunities in that sometimes we'll have a liability-only file, but we had hazmat or cleanup or paid something in that respect to the file, and the insured may be self-insured on the physical damage, and we have the liability only. We will pursue that. Cleanup cost to the adverse party as subrogation, or a PIP will be tied to the liability file. So we, again, integrate between all the files and look at all the payouts and present the totality of the claim in our subrogation demand. At the bottom of that slide, you see insured's damages. That is talking about everything from the deductible to downtime, loss of use, or out-of-pocket expenses. Say you have to send a second driver to pick up that driver whose truck was damaged and they're on the road. You may have motel bills with that. You may have you know, incidental expenses. We will present those to adverse insurance company. Our standing is not the same with that. We will present that, and if they choose to deal with you directly on those out-of-pocket expenses, that is their right. They can do that. We do it to hopefully facilitate the claim as a whole, and a lot of times drivers are more difficult to get a hold of and on the road with their schedule, and sometimes the other companies will discuss through us or go through us for that information, and we're happy to do that as well. This is the slide I was talking about just a minute ago. It was a Great West claim. It's very interesting. If you can see, kind of in the bottom portion of that photo, a little bit to the left, you see those two white, like, pill bottles. This entire load was OxyContin, which was an extremely expensive claim. The cargo was millions of dollars, as you can see how completely filled with this Oxycontin, and it's split open. Why I like to bring this claim up and talk about it is when we're talking about dollars, as you can see, there wasn't damage to the tractor, and about 90% of the trailer and cargo wasn't damaged, but what was still was extremely expensive. What we were able to do by being involved in the claim from the beginning, getting people out there to rework the load, about 90% of it was protected, salvageable. The remaining part, the 10%, although still expensive, was a lot lessened and mitigated by the fact of being out there and reworking that load from the very beginning. So that kind of tied in with what type of dollars we can recover. This one had not only the freight with it, the physical damage of the cargo, the cleanup, the transfer, and the delivery, but it was greatly reduced by the efforts at the beginning of the claim. It's kind of an interesting photo. Two slides ago at the bottom when we talked about the insured's damages, I mentioned these. I like to put those up there for those of you that were thinking, what are all those, you know, and what should I be submitting to Great West when I have a claim? Obviously, the deductible, kind of the easy one associated with your claim. You're talking to the physical damage adjuster, and you will have already discussed the deductible portion. But other items are downtime, the motel bill I mentioned, mileage, sending that other driver out, or mileage to get the unit if you bring it back to your facility for repair, rental car, taxi, meals I talked about. Now the downtime we'll spend a little bit more time later talking about. That's a very sizable amount of the claims that we handle here at Great West, and it's important that from the outset, when you're dealing with the subrogation personnel, is that you're, you know, alerting them the fact that, hey, I'm going to have some downtime tied to my claim, and here's how I calculate it, and that we get the supporting documents and talk to you about what you're willing to settle for and how your calculations are met. You may have heard the term courtesy subrogation. We hear it thrown around in the industry a couple of different ways, so I think it's always good to take a minute and discuss. A courtesy subrogation could be that which is under the deductible. At times we will have a loss that's less than the deductible, but we will assist the insured in presenting that to the adverse party. And again, because we don't have the payout on that or the standing, the other company can elect not to deal with Great West and go directly with the insured, and that's fine. We can just be a kind of a conduit of information and pass that along to the adverse. Another courtesy subrogation area is uninsured losses. That's back to the mileage, motel bills, those out-of-pocket expenses. I mean, by definition, we would want to get you back to being whole. In other words, where you were before the loss. So a lot of times there are some additional expenses. And that is what we're talking about, the uninsured that we present to the adverse. Now, I am in no fashion talking about coming up with, you know, I'm talking about things associated with the loss that you have the proof for. I always try to explain it to my insureds, and I've said this, the agents have heard this. Think of it as if you're under oath in a court of law proving up your case. What are you going to testify to and prove that was associated with the loss and that you were out as a result of someone else's actions? We are not able to pursue or present the driver's bodily injury claims. That's their own loss independent to them. We don't present that in any way. And on courtesy subrogations, those that are listed above under the deductible or uninsured, we at Great West cannot file suit. If it's the pure subrogation dollars, we get involved in litigation in that fashion, but not for a courtesy subrogation. And that's simply because of the legalities. Okay, now on to one of the most fun topics, downtime. We try to explain, or we do explain from the beginning of the claims and to our insureds the duty to mitigate. I always caution against thinking this is very clear-cut facts. I'm going to be pursuing another party. If I can't get into the shop for a couple weeks, that's okay. I'm going to, kind of sit back and wait because the other party's going to pay. There's a whole host of issues that can cause. First of all, by law, you have the duty to mitigate, meaning keep the damages down and do what you can to be generating revenue. But there may be policy limits issues on the other side. There may be a situation where they don't agree with our assessment of the fault, and we'll be talking less than 100% recovery. Any host of problems can come up. So I always try to explain not only is that the legal duty to mitigate, but it's in the best interest of your company to do so. Rental versus lost profits is talking about some states don't allow downtime recovery for lost profits. They talk about rental rates being allowed. We still will make the arguments, but depending on various state laws, the rental issue is a lot easier to get the rental than it is the lost profits and prove those up. We have a worksheet that we utilize to assist our insureds in calculating. Some insureds say to us, I'm a seasonal hauler, how do I calculate that? Or I have specialized hauling equipment, I can't go rent. I've gone to a rental facility and they don't have that type of equipment. That's all good, valid information. We present it to the adverse companies. We just always want to be able to ethically make the argument that we've tried. We've tried to mitigate. Our insured has taken these steps, or they attempted to rent, and for whatever reason they cannot. So that's where the supporting documentation comes in. If you do contact rental facilities or talk to them, I would keep a note of who you talk to, the name of the company, the date you talk to them. All those things assist subrogation in being able to effectively present your claim to the other party. There are two roads. Which will it be? Route A is dealing directly with an adverse carrier. I alluded to that a little earlier on, being where an adverse driver may say, hey, that's my fault, I ran into you, I'll take care of it. I put the saying, haste can make waste, because, and being the mom of a couple teenage drivers here recently, who both got involved in accidents, one at fault, one not, this always comes to mind because I like to give this personal experience first. The driver hopped out to my son, hopped out of his car right away, said, I didn't see you, man, it's my fault, I'll tell my dad, we'll take care. So of course, teenage driver, my son, said, okay, sounds good, no pictures. The other party didn't want to call the police because he was going to take care of it. Well, guess what? The other party gets home to his dad and has a completely different version. You can imagine, here we are dealing with this mess. It's kind of the same situation here. You think, well, they admitted to me they were at fault, they're going to take care of it. That story changes. I just cannot emphasize enough the need to have those cameras in the truck, take those pictures before the vehicles are moved, get the names of anyone who happened to see it. Now, when the police are called and they're doing the report, fantastic. They should be getting that information, a lot of it. But like parking lot incidents, that's where we see this a lot, where the other party will say, let's just, give our names. I can't tell you how many times I hear the other party, when I call them, they'll say, we didn't have a truck in that area. We could not have had one at the truck stop that time. And I'm not saying that they're lying when I talk to them. That may be the information that they were given at the time from their driver. We can a lot of times come up with the information and track that down. But keep in mind, that's all taking time to get that resolved and settled. So if we had the pictures, that decal, that truck, that license plate, you know, that VIN number right there with photographs, it would certainly assist. Route B, going through coverage with Great West, I guess doing this 18 years, I would always recommend to go that route. I know that a lot of times I have insureds that say, well, the damages are just above the deductible. It's very clear I wasn't at fault, and it's difficult to come up with that deductible money. The thing is, by going through the coverage here, you're able to get the repairs done more quickly, be generating the revenue and back on the road. And for all that host of issues that can come up on the other side, policy limits, stories changing, maybe not insured, no insurance on the other side, I always recommend that going under the coverage, and that's what you have it for. And I know, saying that, it's easier for me to say sitting here in this position, but if I had to give advice of the way to handle it, speaking here more to the drivers and the companies, that's what I would recommend. Our subrogation personnel involvement is the investigation, as discussed several times from the outset. Our communication process with the insured and the adverse party or the adverse insurer is from very early on in the file. If it's a situation where the claim may be ongoing for a while, we will put the adverse party on notice. Hey, we're out here, we insure A, B, and C trucking. We're going to be presenting to you a subrogation demand in the future. And the reason it's so important to get that notice out there on record is a lot of states have first come, first serve. If you're talking multiple parties involved in the loss, it's best to have them know if they have us on record as a party that's going to be presenting subrogation to them, they can't settle out from underneath us or pay another party without taking our damages into consideration. The reason we have listed there adverse party slash insurer, is because if there's not insurance on the other side, if it's an uninsured motorist or unauthorized user of a vehicle and the vehicle itself had insurance but a different driver, we don't stop there. We will pursue them individually and directly when it makes sense legally, ethically, and given the dollars involved with the claim. So that's why we also have adverse party listed up there. We will work on payment plans. We will contact them and see what they can do directly. So we coordinate all of our damages with the insured. What are we talking about? Straight subrogation dollars and deductible and your downtime, and present it to the adverse. Then when we hear back from the other carrier or the party directly, if it's not a situation where it's going to be 100% recovery, we'll be in communication with the insured about negotiating a settlement and what makes sense to them and what they'd be willing to do. The subrogation personnel is also involved in the presentation of those claims, meaning coordinating all that information, giving the letter and the supporting documents to the adverse company or party. Also, in presenting that to them, then if there's questions and there needs to be further follow-up, we've given them our contact information and we deal with the other party throughout the life of the claim. Our involvement continues into the negotiation stages. If we can't get voluntary payment from the other party and get it resolved, we at times have to send it for litigation. That is done by outside counsel, a couple of whom I know are out there in the audience today, and I would take a moment here to say that the outside counsel we use on behalf of our claims at Great West are also aligned with the trucking industry. They know transportation law, they know how Great West works, they know our files, how we keep our information. It's a very good list of outside counsel that we use and have used over the years and built a good relationship with. The reason our in-house attorneys for Great West don't handle the litigation themselves is that would be a conflict of interest. We're employed by Great West, so we ethically send those out to outside counsel. All right, and a little more information on what our insureds and or drivers can do at the accident site, and it does warrant revisiting this issue again. Get the information from the other drivers, including their name, address, phone, employer, and insurance policy information. Take photos of the vehicles before moving, the point of impact, the other license plate, and damage if they had any as a result. If it involves animal on the roadway, take a photo of the animal, any ear tags or brands, and any fencing issues that you would see, or open gates. Again, as stated, any witnesses that happen to be standing there or willing to come forward and give their information, because I mean it sounds very simple when I say obviously the witness is gone by the time we get to the scene later or get the claim reported, but it bears repeating and telling drivers and companies that are out there, reminding your drivers in training that you do. It's always good to be reminded of this information, because obviously when an accident happens, you have a lot on your mind, flustered, the adrenaline's going. It's not something you might stop to think to do. So we always try to reiterate that, to have a camera, in the dash, in the glove box, have the ability, a notepad, kind of maybe even a little checklist of what to do if I'm involved in an accident. So getting witnesses' names and address and phone is important. And then the calling and reporting immediately for all of the reasons stated today. After leaving the accident site, a good idea to keep copies of all accident-related expenses, such as the motel bills, the tows, the transportation bills, and that's coming back to thinking of anything as if you were presenting it in a court of law. What would be my evidence and supporting documentation? The log of mileage, same reasoning. Try to rent replacement vehicle. That's back to the duty to mitigate. This downtime calculation sheet referred to on that fourth bullet point is what I talked about earlier, of how our Great West personnel, subrogation personnel, tries to assist and coordinate in the damages to our insured, is going through different ways of how they calculate their revenue and proving that up. Now, going forward a little bit to receiving the recovery and a successful subrogation result, the easiest and best is full recovery. Very easy. We presented this amount, we got it from the adverse, and here you go, here's the money. That's the easy answer and the fastest route. As you can imagine, there's other scenarios. Second is partial recovery. That could be due to comparative fault situation, where we've agreed that we were a portion at fault in the loss. It could be because there's insufficient limits on the other side, so we are somewhat in a situation of being forced to take less than 100%. It could be a situation where there's multiple parties involved, and even though there's ample insurance limits, there's still not enough to go around to bring everyone to 100% of their losses. Those partial recovery disbursements are done by the various state laws in effect. There are some states that are considered what's called made whole, stating that the insured must be brought to whole before any of the subrogation dollars are kept by the insurer. That's the prorating recovery. SIR accounts have usually wording in either the SIR language contract or the endorsements. A lot of those claims agreements say first dollars to Great West Casualty, remaining to the insured. I would recommend you be familiar with that language before you're involved with the claim. I always hate it when the first time an insured has kind of looked at that or thought of it is when they're involved in a subrogation claim. So something to discuss with your agent. Hurdles to subrogation are the facts themselves, you know, and is it a favorable situation or comparative fault situation, and what arguments we need to make. Another hurdle may be the law that I've talked about. Various state laws, are the damages recoverable? Some states don't allow downtime recovery for a total loss situation. Some governmental immunities, let's say government employee vehicle or construction roadway set up by that state, city, county, there are immunity against some different governmental agencies. That may be a hurdle to allowing us to recover. Another hurdle is no one to subrogate against. There's your lightning, your deer, your phantom vehicle causes our driver to go off the road and upset, but we have no one to pursue because we don't know who they are. They left the scene. No insurance on the other side, policy limits issues. No supporting documents for downtime is a very big hurdle. You know, the other company, other party adverse to us that we're dealing with is going to be asking for those supports, much as we would do if a downtime claim was presented to us. So I urge to, when you present that downtime claim to us, have the supports with it to save time and have them be, you know, legible and able to be explained. Another hurdle would be if there's no assets on the other side. Sometimes if there's less than 100% policy limits or not ample insurance on the other side, we look at what assets do they have available in addition to their insurance. But a hurdle would be if there's no assets. Another hurdle would be back to this integration of dealing with the other party. We are always in contact with liability. If they say to us, hey, subrogation, you guys need to, you know, back off and not aggressively pursue your claims, you're going to draw a counterclaim of much more severe results to our insured. So we collaborate in that fashion. That can be a hurdle to a subrogation recovery. This was an actual claim this photo is showing out of that we had here at Great West, and I guess the caption that should go across it is, who's at fault here? I mean, talk about a hurdle to subrogation recovery. There was about between 90 and 100 vehicles involved in this. This was several years ago on the interstate over here in Iowa, and every photo after photo looks just like that. It's like, which came first, the chicken or the egg? And we tried to pull that apart and determine who's gonna pay who for what damages. So I put that slide in there in the middle of, that's definitely a hurdle to a subrogation recovery. Same loss, same argument. This minimum levels of required auto insurance, just a couple of slides on this, and it doesn't really warrant going into in any depth. It's just for your information. I know you have access to these slides then after the presentation. It's just another hurdle to our successful subrogation efforts if there are statutory limits provided in the various states. This slide is a loss that Great West handled, and the reason I have the 72,000 number up there is, and have this right after the slides of a hurdle, is it's very important that in the equipment listed you continually are assessing the value of it. This particular unit was not insured for the proper amount, and after this substantial loss, as you can see, it was valued on paper and insured for less than what the actual cash value was. And although we can explain that to the adverse insurance company, back to the supports and what it was insured for, is a definite hurdle. And you know, at times we are able to explain that and show and explain it away, but you know, a lot of times not. They're going to try to argue what you had it insured for is the value. So it kind of is good to take just a moment and show that situation and talk about it, and kind of a reminder out there to always be aware of that equipment and go over that important information with your agent. On those files where we are not able to get the voluntary payment or negotiate what we believe to be a reasonable settlement, when it goes out to litigation, we try to have those handled by outside counsel on a contingency fee, meaning a percentage of any recovery received as opposed to hourly expenses. We also will try to include in our litigation, if it's a state where attorney fees are allowed, we will look at, is a counterclaim feasible, meaning let's say our liability is looking to file the liability action. We may, Subro, get involved in that, and we may present our counterclaim on a file where we maybe didn't think was as strong initially, but then if it's going to be in litigation, we will tag along with that and file our counterclaim. Again, we're always looking at the pros and cons, the hurdles, and does it make sense. So, I mean, all this information is very big generalities today, and we try to look at each and every claim of what makes sense for that one at the time. So on that, before we get to questions from you, I'd just like to say is after today, if you're going through this and have any other questions, please, you know, let me know. Ask your agents. Agents contact me, if agents have questions, please let me know. I'm happy to answer them. Like I said, I have to give the caveat that it's a very broad audience today, so it's a lot of generalities. But I hope you walk away today with a better understanding of subrogation specific to Great West and what we do and what we're about. And I would welcome any questions or comments anyone has. Thank you.
Okay, so we're starting to see some questions come in through the chat window. If people have any more questions, again, you just type them into the chat window in the GoToMeeting console. The first question is there a minimum amount that you would typically subrogate?
No. In other words, we've seen everything. We have open files currently where it may be a bent mirror in a parking lot situation and it's $300 to a recovery received 3 months ago by one of our people that was $1.3 million. It had physical damage, cargo, workers' compensation all tied in with it. No, that's the beauty of the setup of subrogation claims representatives and attorneys. And that is definitely a bonus to customers of Great West.
Awesome, thank you. Next question, as far as liability is concerned, where does Great West stand with a scenario where a tractor blows a tire and the motorist behind them runs over the debris and then sustains damage to the car, assuming that the tire was in good condition before when a pre-trip inspection was done?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's better directed to liability. I mean, I don't get involved in those. I would be involved on the flip side, making the argument, you know, if our insured ran over debris from another driver, and I can tell you, it's difficult. But I don't want to misspeak. I really don't know if Great West has a certain stance they take automatically or if they look at it a case-by-case basis. I mean, whomever is asking can sure call me or our liability directly and ask. I'm not sure. Sorry.
Okay. Someone else is asking, can you subrogate lost income due to truck and trailer use?
Subrogate lost income due to truck and trailer use. I'm not sure I know what they mean.
I think they're getting at not being able to use your equipment while it's being repaired. Can you subrogate for the lost income associated with that?
Yes, that is kind of that is what I refer to with the downtime, while it is down and in for repairs. And Great West does have a coverage for that can be purchased, but if it's down for 30 days. So as a courtesy, you know, a lot of people don't, if you don't buy that coverage or have it, we still present to the adverse party where from the date of the loss to the date it was repaired. It has to be, you know, reasonable and able to be proven and explained. But yes, where it's in for the reasonable repairs related to the loss and that time frame, we do present it.
Can you walk us through the process? So if you have a claim like that and some of those other expenses that you talked about, like motel expenses, meals, what would be the process that someone would go through to submit that as a claim or as a potential cost to be subrogated?
Well, speaking just for the claim presented to Great West, so they have physical damage coverage with Great West Casualty. It's set up at the time their claim is, okay, let me back up. They have the coverage with Great West. They get involved in an accident. They call in the loss. Subrogation staff is alerted to the fact that there's a new, a subrogation claim. They will contact the insured relatively soon by sending a letter to them about the legal duties to mitigate and losses associated with it and introducing their name and who they are. We don't call them at the outset of every subrogation claim because usually the insured's being called by liability, they're being called by physical damage. You know, it's just one more person, and we've heard over the years, I don't need all these phone calls from Great West people right at the beginning. So we send a letter kind of explaining what we do. And then to answer your question further, coordination of those damages is done by the insured getting back in contact with the subrogation person and saying, I have this list of expenses and here's what they're going to be for, and then they mail them in, fax them in, email them to the subrogation staff, and then the subrogation staff presents it to the adverse party.
Gotcha.
And these are all talking about coverage with Great West. I guess, Andrea, that's a really good point about that we don't do this for self-insured liability only or, insured with another company. This is just for Great West.
Okay. Here's another good question. Does the insured have a say in how the case is handled?
Yeah, yes. We speaking from the subrogation standpoint, we have had in the past where some of our customers will say, look, this was a loss at a facility, but it's my #1 customer. I do 90% of my business with them, and I really, really want you guys to, back off and not pursue it. We definitely take that into consideration. Now, will we just automatically close it down? It depends on the amount of the file. Has Great West paid out $300,000 on damages, or are we talking $3,000 and the insured wants us to walk away? Yeah, we get in those discussions with the insured and we value their input and their information.
Okay.
I think technically under the contract of insurance and the SIR, read your claims agreements, but I think on SIRs the decision making, is stated in there a little bit better. If you're talking just the non-SIR general policies, the wording will state about the communications and who can make those decisions. But we try to be in contact. Could we do better at it? Yeah, always, I'm sure.
Okay. This is a little bit related to the previous question, but during a subrogation, if there's a witness, would the insured receive the witness information so that they could contact them directly?
Sometimes our insureds get the police report themselves, because their address and information is listed by the investigating officer. Sometimes they receive that information before we do. But would Great West automatically be sending out witness information to the insured? No, probably not.
Okay. Lots of great questions. We have just a few minutes for a few more. Here's a kind of a specific scenario. So this person wrote, I'm having a problem with another company refusing to pay a load swap bill, but they paid everything else in our demand. How can I get them to reimburse for the load swap?
I guess to go with the information that you're giving me, it's already been that they've accepted liability. You're saying they've paid a portion of it, so either they have an issue, the other party has an issue with what you're presenting, that it's not sufficient supports, or that they don't feel it's reasonable and associated to the loss. I guess it comes back to trying to figure out what their issue is with that specific category and seeing if you can, explain it. Then eventually you get to the point of to sue or not to sue.
Gotcha. Can an insurance company deny a subrogation stating that their insured driver was not negligent, but that same insured driver's tire came off of his tractor? The tire was worked on 5 days prior. Shouldn't that carrier pay for the subrogation and then subrogate to the party that installed the tire? That's
Okay.
another scenario that maybe I think that some of the details would be very important there.
Yep. Can you reread it? I think I have an idea what they're talking about.
Yeah. So can an insurance company deny a subrogation stating that their insured driver was not negligent, but that same insured driver's tire came off of his tractor? The tire was worked on 5 days prior. Shouldn't the carrier pay the subrogation and then subrogate to the party that installed the tire?
Okay, so somebody else, when you're asking if your company pay the subrogation, you mean another party must have hit that tire and is presenting to them. So let me back up. That is a scenario that we have had in our products liability portion. If somebody has previously worked on the unit, in your example, 5 days prior, we look at, was the work substandard? Was there an issue with the work that was performed? We look at the maintenance records of the truck. I'm not going to answer whether or not, because I don't have enough knowledge about it, of what the liability portion would do and if we would pay. But I would say from a subrogation standpoint, I would be looking to, even if our liability went ahead and paid, I'd be looking to present that claim to who did the work on the truck and who did the, in my opinion, faulty repairs on the truck. I mean, that would be my position based on what you're giving me in that scenario.
Gotcha.
I mean, keep in mind, subrogation at Great West, our goals are very, black and white. It's to recover the dollars and get them back from the responsible party. So we are always looking at every claim in that vein. Who is at fault and who can we pursue?
Okay. One last question, and then we'll let you go, Mary Beth.
Okay.
If I receive a property damage subrogation, what can I expect in terms of proof that we were responsible for the loss?
If they receive it from another party?
I believe so, yep.
If you are presented a subrogation from another party, they're asking what they can get for supports to that?
Yep, I believe that's what they're asking.
I mean, for the property damage portion, you'd be looking at either estimates, repair bills, line by line item of parts and labor, which varies region to region of hourly rates. If it's a total damage, we look at like-kind quality parts. We look at truck ad papers, similar truck ads and supports. We also really heavily rely here at Great West on our adjusters in-house that have previously been with in repair facilities and shops, and they're now employed by Great West, and they will fine-tooth comb these repair bills and estimates, and then they go over them with us and explain them, and we make the arguments to other parties. So if I flipped that and I was being presented that from another party, I would, you know, probably utilize our in-house adjusters to kind of go through it and tell me and assist me.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure if that was the direction they were going with their question, so I apologize if I misunderstood.
Okay. I think that's what the question was getting at.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Yeah, we're at about 2:05, so we'll have to wrap things up for today. If you have other questions for the folks on the line, please go ahead and email them to either myself or your relationship manager at H&I. Mary Beth, thank you for taking the time to present today. I know that I learned a lot about the topic, and I'm sure that the folks on the line did as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, everyone.